thank y'all for the opportunity for letting me be here today. I'm definitely not a politician, and you might hear a lot of ums and everything going through this speech, but I typically kind of like to go off the cuff and just tell you about myself and what I want to do for District 115. But I did prepare a little something today because I do have a message, and I want to make sure this message gets across. My name is Zachary Grady, and I am running for House District 115 in Biloxi and D'Iberville. I would like to thank the Harrison County Republican women for putting this event together and for the invitation. I would also like to thank the most important person in the room to me, which is my wife Allison, because I would not be able to do this without her. We have 2 small children, and I just thank her for the opportunity for allowing me to run for this office to support my community. This is no easy task, and we know the sacrifice that we face being away from each other for several months at a time and balancing that life as parents. I can firmly say we have made this decision together, and we are all in this as a team. My background, I believe, has prepared me for this job. I started my professional career at Ingalls Shipbuilding working in the finance department. As mentioned earlier, I did get laid off when the defense budget was cut by millions of dollars. There were several shipyards closed, and there was a large percent in Pascagoula at Ingalls Shipbuilding that was laid off. This was in 2010. But even when I was there working, I always wanted to do more. I wanted to do something where I could give back to my community. At a very young age, I was raised in a single-parent household. My mom worked 2 or 3 jobs to help support me and make sure that I had everything she could possibly provide me. I tell people all the time, this is where I believe I learned my work ethic. I learned how to work hard to support my family. And because she was working all the time, it gave me the opportunity to spend time with my grandparents. Some of you may know who they were. It was Bob and Shannon Stein. They owned and operated the Biloxi D'Iberville Press for almost 30 years. And I was connected to my grandfather's hip. And my grandfather, he started the D'Iberville St. Martin Chamber of Commerce. He was the first president, and I got to go to all the meetings with him. I got to go to all the local elections, and I can remember he had an office in D'Iberville and Biloxi. And when he first started, D'Iberville was actually called North Biloxi, so the paper started out, it was called the North Biloxi. And we would go and we would talk. I would spend time at the paper office on both sides of the bay. I remember walking around, going inside the post office, checking the P.O. box. I thought that was so cool when I was a little kid. And that's where I learned my love for my community. My grandfather taught me how important it is to give back and fight for our family and our community. My background as a law enforcement officer and a narcotics agent has shown that I've stood up against criminals and I've enforced the laws that defend our Constitution. And for that, I will never allow a liberal woke agenda that is pushing their values on our children. I will never support a bill that would subject my daughter to have to compete with a man in a sporting event and force her to have to share a bathroom with him. This may happen in other parts of our country, but I can tell you we need a strong conservative voice in Jackson, and this will not happen here. When I worked in the finance department at Ingalls as an auditor, I did that for many years. Ingalls is one of the most important manufacturers in our country. They build the very ships that defend our nation and protect our military. Billions of dollars pass through Ingalls, and I was part of auditing those dollars and resources and make sure they were spent properly. When the 2023 legislative session began, there were $3.9 billion in surplus, with a lot of those dollars being assigned here on the coast. We need a strong conservative voice in Jackson that knows how to balance a budget, knows how business efficiency works, and who would never allow millions of dollars in poor management and planning cost our taxpayers obscene waste as we have seen in Biloxi over the infrastructure debacle. Howard Avenue, if you've driven down it lately, especially in East Biloxi, it looks like the Ukraine. It has for years. Looks like a third world country. This has been going on since Hurricane Katrina. The money that has been spent on legal fees could have built a new Pops Ferry Bridge by now. Because let's face it, I'm sure some of y'all today got stuck in traffic trying to get over Pops Ferry Bridge that was stuck again. We have to have another bridge. This has been going on for my entire life, 40 years. I could go on and on. As a state representative, I will make sure the dollars awarded to the coast will put us in a position where we can have the right infrastructure and the right road work in District 115. We are the heart of the number 5 gaming district in the nation. We are the heart of the biggest tourism for the state of Mississippi. District 115 is a special place, and we have a very special opportunity, especially in this election. This is an open seat, and it's one of the coast's most prime and economically driven areas. Right now, our coast delegation is stronger than it has ever been in my lifetime. Our coastal House members hold the highest positions, such as Chairman of Education, Gaming, Appropriations, Insurance, and Transportation. And I do have relationships with our lawmakers and our leaders, with all of them. I speak with our coast delegates regularly because whenever I take office, I want to have a plan and I want to have the relationships in place to be able to do and fight for what District 115 needs. I have lived here my entire life, and I am running to bring a fresh opportunity and fresh ideas to the table. I'm not a bureaucrat that comes to you with baggage and broken promises. I don't owe a debt to anyone other than our children, who I want to see have opportunities here at home. I'm already building those relationships, as I've mentioned. I've spoke with Kevin Felsher more than one time. Pops Ferry Bridge is actually in his district, in District 117, and I've asked him what we have to do to have a new Pops Ferry Bridge. If we would have fixed Pops Ferry Bridge decades ago, it would not even cost us half, or even less than half, of what it's going to cost us today. And the only way that we can get Pops Ferry Bridge fixed, right now it's a city-owned bridge. We have to finish our Pops Ferry Road project. We have to make sure it's connected to our highway so we can get the proper funding to fix that bridge. Because right now, we can barely get the funding to maintain it. And that's scary because we live in a hurricane-stricken area. And we have to have the correct and right infrastructure to be able to get to where we need to get. And for our everyday business-to-business driving, this has to be fixed. And it's unacceptable that it's been in the way it has for so long. So again, I'm already building those relationships, and I am excited and I'm energized to be a part of this and represent my home. You know, it's exciting to say that I've lived here my entire life. It gives me a profound appreciation for our marine resources, our seafood industry, and our way of life here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. One of my favorite pastimes, I used to sit in the living room with my grandmother at her house on Back Bay. She's got a huge picture window in her living room. It overlooks Back Bay, and we used to sit in there and she would tell me stories all the time. And one of those stories was how her grandfather would go up to Stone County and he would pick out the trees that he wanted to build his shrimp boats. They would cut those trees down, they would put them in the river, and they'd float them to Back Bay. So once they got to his house, he would pick out the wood that he wanted to build his shrimp boats, and the wood that he felt wasn't good enough for his shrimp boats, he would build his houses. There's still 2 of those houses that I know of today that are still standing. They've weathered Hurricane Camille, Hurricane Katrina, and they're still in our family. I tell you that story to tell you how deep my family roots go here and the appreciation that I have for our marine resources and our seafood industry, because that's where my family comes from. It's very important to have a candidate that knows those issues and knows how important it is to fight for those issues here at home. It's important that we do not allow the Bonnet Carré spillway to continue to open and kill our marine resources and our seafood industry here on the coast. The Pass Christian oyster beds used to produce 400,000 sacks of oysters. The last, 5 minutes, sorry. The last time they harvested from that reef, 400 sacks. 400. That is unacceptable, and we need a strong conservative voice that is going to fight for his home and his family and the conservative values that we all stand on in Jackson. I know I am that person, and I cannot wait to represent each and every one of you in Jackson. Thank you again for this opportunity. It was my pleasure to be here. Thank you.